Hi, I'm Dr. V. Welcome to Chem 211. Organic chemistry might be different than anything you've ever done before, so there are going to be some challenges and some hard work, but you're going to grow a lot, and it's very likely to be more fun than you think. So let's start by thinking about the nuts and bolts of the syllabus. These are the two pages that I'm going to refer to, I guess, as the nuts and bolts of the syllabus. And so this page has, obviously some information on it. We'll come and talk about that. And this I'm going to refer to as the general pace of the course. So if we focus on the required materials, you need to have a textbook. Now I consider the textbook to be a reference for you. So this is what you need to know about my relationship to the textbook. I don't read the textbook. I don't use the textbook. The textbook is for you to read and for you to use as a resource. And I have on the syllabus, in the nuts and bolts, in the general pace, some information about how you should be using the textbook. But you must have some version of the textbook. It doesn't make any difference if it's the PDF or the electronic version or any other version, but you need some version of the textbook. You also need to have a model kit. This is an example of a model kit. I happen to like this model kit. You're going to be playing with things in 3 dimensions and looking at the differences between things in 3 dimensions, and it will be helpful to you to use a model kit. On an exam, you'll be able to bring one tetrahedral unit, that is one of these things, to the exam. No more, but you can bring one of these, and so having some facility with the model kit is going to be useful to you. And perhaps most importantly, you and I are required materials in the course. Like I said, I don't use the textbook, but you use the textbook. But what that means is that I define the course. And so the way we interact in class and the things that you ask, the things that I ask and that you answer will dictate what we do during our 50 minutes together in a classroom. And so what that is and how we do it defines the course. And so it works together with the textbook because I'm going to be doing things differently, which is to your benefit. If I repeat the textbook, then you either do not need me or you do not need the textbook. So I try very hard to look at things from a perspective that is different from the textbook, especially when I think that might be useful. Some optional materials in the course include the Bridge to Organic Chemistry. It has some review material from general chemistry, and one thing of interest is that it also has some nomenclature in it. And so we'll come back to talk about nomenclature again in a few minutes. And another text that you could purchase is called Pushing Electrons. Probably the most important thing that you should remember about Pushing Electrons is its title. Pushing electrons. Pushing electrons is a device or a language that we use in organic chemistry to show how that bonds are made or bonds are broken or how electrons can be rearranged within a molecule. So it's a tool that we use to communicate that, and it's probably one of the most important things that you can learn in Chem 211. You also can use the Q Center. And so you should pay attention to what's available at the Q Center and make use of it as much as you find that you can. You also have available to me, me in my office hours or outside of office hours. I obviously have formal office hours that are printed right here on the syllabus, but I'm on campus all day. Every weekday, somewhere. I have responsibilities besides being in my office and being in the lab and being in the classroom. So I'm not always in my office, but I am always on campus all day, every weekday. Often I sit in my office with the lights off. So please feel free to knock on my door, even if you think I'm not there. There's a decent chance that I'm there, and I won't ignore a knock on my door if I happen to be in my office. I will do everything I can to meet with you and talk with you if I happen to be in my office. This is what I referred to earlier as the general pace. I don't want you to think of this as a schedule. It says several places here. This is not a schedule. Rather, it's a tool for you to use to know approximately the order of materials the order of reading that corresponds to the content of the course, some representative exercise that correspond to that reading and what we're likely to be doing at approximately that time in class, and also a time frame for which you should be learning some nomenclature, and if you happen to be using pushing electrons, a time frame for completing that workbook if you so choose. But it's definitely not a schedule. There are going to be times that I'm behind this schedule. There are going to be times that I may be ahead of this schedule, but it gives you a very, very good idea of the order of events and approximately how much you should be doing each day. I mentioned that you are responsible for nomenclature. You should read thoroughly this page of your full syllabus. What you find here is that I'm not going to teach nomenclature. It's not worth spending class time on nomenclature. This is learned by rote. The rules are written down. You all can read, learn the rules, and practice nomenclature. So you are absolutely responsible for learning the nomenclature of organic compounds. And again, on the general pace is a schedule by which you should be learning those things in time for the appropriate exam or examlet. So how am I going to grade this class? Well, you're going to have some exams. You're going to have a lab. The lab is worth 25%. You have to get 60% of that 25% in order to pass the course. We're going to have 3 regular exams, 1 small exam, which I'll refer to as examito or examicule or examlet or some other play on the word exam, but a small test, and of course a final exam. And so the examito is going to be on Monday, September 15th. It will be worth 6% of your grade in the class. The course has 1,000 points in it, and so 6% means that that will be 60 points. So all of the exams and all of the labs will have a number of points available, and for the examito, the number of points will be 60. We'll have 3 exams. These are on approximate exam dates. I sometimes call these target dates. Each of the exams will nominally be worth 130 points out of 1,000, or 13% of the course. And the final exam will nominally be worth 300 points in the course. And so if you add those up, that ends up being 1,000 points. Now I do give you a couple of ways that you can improve upon what those nominal scores would be. And so there will be a chemical communication aspect to the course. At the end of the semester, I'll decide, hey, is this person, participating in class, participating in lab, and are they doing so rather well? If so, it's possible to get up to 40 points that way. And if you get 40 points, well, you probably didn't get 130 on the exams, and so it's going to be worth it to have that. So I will then give you those 40 points for the chemical communication portion of the grade, and then I will normalize all of the other major exams, that is the final and the regular exams, to a lower point total to make things a little bit better for you. So that's what you'll get as a number of points for each of those things. For the exams, you'll have 2 hours. They're not written to last 2 hours. I usually write them so that I can do them in about 20 to 25 minutes. Of course, you can't do them in 20 to 25 minutes. But if you need some time to think, which you will, then you have 2 hours in order to take those exams. Usually people are done writing things down on the exam after about an hour and a half, and then the last half hour is people just trying to fill in blanks that they have left because they were unable maybe to come up with an answer right away, that sort of thing. But you have 2 hours so that you have plenty of time to take the exam. On the exams, or anything else for that matter, you do not get a letter grade. You're just going to get a number of points from me. So pay attention to that number of points. So if it was a 130-point exam, maybe you'll get 95 points out of 130 on that exam. So that's all you'll get. Of course, you'll also get many comments from me on the exam, but all you're going to get is a number of points, not a B+. At the end of the semester, I'll compute your score in multiple ways to maximize your total score. So one way is that I'm going to take the lowest exam and I'm going to adjust it down to 9%, and the best two then become 15%. And so there's an adjustment on top of these numbers as well. So at the end of the semester, then how will I determine grades? You're going to be wondering, hey, what am I going to do? How do I know any given day? Well, what is the minimum score it would take to just earn an A in this class? That's a question that I will ask, and I will take into account the whole semester. So this is why there are no letters as we move through the semester. The letters come at the end. So I'll say, hey, how much would it take just to earn an A in this class? And I'm going to make this up, but I'm going to say I decide it would take 890 points to get an A this semester out of 1,000. I'll ask another question of myself. What's the minimum score it would take to just earn a D- in the course, just to pass the class? And then for the sake of argument here, I'm going to say, let's assume I decide it's going to take 550 points to earn a D- for the semester. Now that I've made those two determinations, 890 is the lowest A and 550 is the lowest D-, I've decided everyone's grade in the class without thinking about any individual. Now, how did I do that? And so we said that 890 points is the lowest A, so 890 to 1,000 points is an A. And we said that 550 is the lowest possible D-, so 550, that's the lowest possible D-. So there are 10 grade divisions between those. So 890 minus 550 divided by 10 grade divisions, that's 34 points. And so each one of these point ranges is 34 points. And wherever you land, that's your grade. So we're going to use a straight scale. There's no curving. You don't want curving. If you think you want curving, then you don't know what curving is. This means that everyone could get an A in this class. Curving means that that's not possible. On any given day, how do you know where you stand in the class? Well, there are going to be three ways that you can determine where you stand in the class. One is the rule of thumb, second is old scores, and the third is to talk with me. The third one, talk with me, is always available to you, and it's usually some combination of the first two. So the first one, the rule of thumb, is to take your exam score or your exam scores and you're going to convert it into a percentage. You can add 5% to that percentage and then you'll apply a regular straight scale. So if you were Josh and you got 103 points out of 150 or something, you convert that to a percentage. It's maybe 67%. You add 5% to that. That's 72%. 72 is a C- on a regular straight scale. So by rule of thumb, you can use your exam scores to make a prediction, and it's usually within plus or minus half a letter grade of reality at the end of the semester. The same is true for old scores. I will always, after you get any exam back from me, you will have an opportunity to look at some old scores, real old scores. So here's an example, and what you want to do is you find somebody who's doing like you. So maybe you're something like Arnie. So you started off with a 93 and you did better on the second one, and maybe a little bit worse than the second on the third, and so on. You're going to find somebody that looks a little bit like you, and that's going to help you determine approximately where you are in the course. And by the same way, that's usually going to be within about a half a letter grade. And so that's very satisfactory. Half a letter grade predictor is a very satisfactory prediction going into the end of the semester. So now you have some expectations about the materials and about the grading and the resources available to you. And I want to make sure you remember that number 3 on that list of how to determine your grade is always come and talk to me.